So right when you think that you don't have to go up on stage in front of your DAC members again. I know two of them are here. I'm very glad because my chair isn't here. So he said he has classes. I'm like, okay. But this is the first time in my life and probably ever I'm going to be talking in front of so many PhDs. Okay, let me see if I can read this correctly. Okay. So we have our next panel discussion on doctoral program at IIMB, the early days and how it evolved, and the future. So many of us, I think, will be able to talk about it because we spend a very long time here. So, I mean, we have seen it evolve in a certain way, but then again, some of us will be able to do it better. So we have a panel of some graduates, and more importantly, we have panel of chairpersons from the past doctoral programs who have helped us through our graduation process, who have made our lives easier, and we will hear from them. So we'll now, introduce them. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Himanshu. I'm in the final year, and I'm just in between where you start and where you end. So to introduce our first panelist, which is Professor T. Krishna Kumar. Professor T. Krishna Kumar is currently the director of the Rockville Analytics at Maryland in USA. He served as one of the first program chairs of the doctoral program at IIMB. He has held faculty positions in several universities in India as well as abroad, including IIT Kanpur, Iowa State University, Northeastern University, Florida Atlantic University, Arizona State University, George Washington University, University of Hyderabad, Indian Statistical Institute. He has several publications in leading international journals and is also author of the book called Developing Econometrics. Professor Krishna Kumar has received his PhD economics from Iowa State University, postgraduate diploma from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and BSc honors from Andhra University. Professor Krishna Kumar, can we welcome you on stage? I would also like our IIMB family to congratulate Professor Krishna Kumar on his 85th birthday. Sir, keep us guiding for as many years as possible to come. Thank you.
We also have Professor Chiranjib Sen. Professor Chiranjib Sen is a distinguished professor of economics and public policy in the School of Liberal Studies at BML Munjal University, Haryana. From 1993 to 2011, he was a professor of economics and social sciences at IIMB. He served as the founding chairperson of the Center for Public Policy, CPP. Earlier, he was the chairperson of the doctoral program, FPM, from 2011 to 2013, he was a visiting professor at Ajim Premji University, Bangalore. He has also been a part-time visiting professor at the National Law School of India University and in IIM Calcutta. Professor Sen has worked to promote collaboration among higher education institutions. Professor Sen has served as an external member of several academic committees of higher education institutions. Professor Sen received his PhD in economics from Stanford University, MA from Delhi School of Economics, and BA Honors from Presidency College, Kolkata. Sir, we would like to hear from your immense experience on mentoring PhDs, what holds for them in the future. Welcoming you on stage, Professor Chiranjib Sen.
Next we have is Professor K. Kumar, our 1987 batch FPM. Professor Kumar was a professor of entrepreneurship at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He is graduated doctoral fellow from Bangalore. He has held positions as CEO, president, and management consultant in reputed organizations, besides starting and nurturing 3 companies as an entrepreneur. He joined IIMB in 2001 as visiting professor of corporate strategy and policy and was subsequently appointed as the professor of entrepreneurship when the area was formed in 2007. He was chairperson NSR cell at IIMB for 2008 to March 2012. He also served as dean alumni relations and development at IIMB from 2018 till his retirement in 2022. He also edited the book, The Evolution of IIMB Directors' Perspectives. He has contributed chapters to few edited volumes of entrepreneurship as well as vocational education. He currently serves as an academic advisor to NSR Cell. Professor Kumar, can you welcome on stage? We can see Professor Kumar as full circle IMBN. He has been a PGP alum, an FPM alum, and now a faculty alum as well.
We have Professor Gopal Mahapatra. Professor Gopal P. Mahapatra is a professor of practice, OB and HRM at IIM Bangalore. Prior to this, he was a professor of practice, OB and HRM at IIM Indore. He has 30 plus years of corporate consulting and academic experience. Professor Gopal has been a successful organizational transformation practitioner and leadership coach, ardent about building institutions and establishing systems to enhance performance. He is a fellow in management, doctoral program from IIM Bangalore, and postgraduate in personal management and IR from Xavier's Institute of Social Service, Ranchi. In addition to the corporate experience, he has co-edited 3 books, edited a special journal issue of NHRDN on organization development, and written several papers and participated in a number of international and national conferences. Sir, we would like to hear from you about the PhD program, and then on as a faculty member from multiple students. Some of them are here in audience, welcoming you on stage.
Finally, we have our moderator, Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. Professor Vasanthi is a professor in organization behavior and human resource management area and currently serves as the chairperson of digital learning at IIMB. She is the past president of Indian Academy of Management. Her research interests are in the fields of multi-generations in workplace, women in management and boards, ethics in business, and CSR in micro, small, and mid-sized enterprises. She has consulted extensively for both Indian and multinational companies in the field of leadership development. She has served on boards of National HRD and Enable India. She is a graduate of postdoctoral or doctoral fellow program at IIMB and has a PGD in personal management and industrial relationship from XLRI Jamshedpur. Professor Vasanthi is amongst the first few female FPM students from IIMB, and also is the first in many cases, including being the first female president of Indian Academy of Management. Ma'am, welcome you on stage. Now, I would like to hand it over to Professor Vasanthi. We have around an hour, I think a little less than that, and we'll have a 45-minute session, and we'll follow with next 15 minutes for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. And it's wonderful to be here on this panel with people that I have known for all maybe 3.5 decades that I've been associated with IIMB somehow or the other. Today's panel is special in many ways because I just realized that the year that I came on the program, 89, was in some ways the transition of IIMB. And 2 people, one who is here on the panel and the other who's hopefully here somewhere, Sriram and K. Kumar, actually are culprits for bringing me into IIMB. Okay? Because between the time that I got the offer and I had to decide, I came and spoke to these people. And we all know Kumar, right? In his seriousness, he just said, yes, absolutely, the program, do you want to be academic? And he gave me all of that. While Sriram turned around and said, boss, what you get out of this program is what you want to take out of this program. Okay? Fine, simple, decision made. And now when we sit here so many years later to just reflect on how far we've come, I think the both of you here have played quite a crucial role. I'm not sure how much was it very deliberate when you thought of it so many years later. Professor Krishna Kumar, that you actually thought you'll be here with us on this program and actually celebrating a role that you played so many years ago. Yeah. And while I come back to you, Kumar, I think what we'll do is, like Kshitij had mentioned, right? That history project that you've been on has been so incredible for us in the 50th year. And as a part of that, you've also done a note on the doctoral program. Would you be able to take 4 minutes? Okay. And yeah, because I've cut it down from 5 to 4 now. Okay, over to you.
Thanks, Vasanthi. Great to be here in this panel. 48 years of FPM program, if you count it from the year 1976 when the program was launched, and you want to say what happened in 4 minutes, okay, let me try. To my mind, when I look through the history of this program, there are approximately four distinctive phases of this program. The first phase was approximately, I'll put it from 1976 to 1986. I would call that the foundational years of the program. And this program was very much aligned with the larger vision of IIMB, when it started. That is helping the modern management to reach the under-management sectors of the economy. And going back to 1976, so forget about content for managing sectors, even context-specific content in management itself was very sparse. And most of the discussion used to be around whether we need professional management, MBAs at all. That's the topic of discussion. So the early program tried to focus on two different things. One is to develop context-specific content which can be taught to these undermanaged sectors of the economy. And management itself being a new discipline, there weren't enough teachers to take this content to the beneficiaries. So the initial focus of the program was very modest, preparing teachers to take management to the undermanagement sectors of the economy. That is the focus with which we started. We went through a lot of early hiccups over there because Institute itself started functioning only in 74. PGP started in 74, FPM started in 76. The usual problem of the early scaling up. So we almost took a break in the year 1980 because the students who were admitted in the early years were moving into the dissertation phases. We had to get that part of it right. So we took a break, and then the students were moving into the dissertation phase, and we had to put a lot of things in place at that time. Also, because management education itself was not very well developed, the students we took in the FPM program also did not have background in management. So the early design of the program was a 4-year program in which the students used to get financial support. Out of this, the 2 years were spent on attending classes with the PGP students to get the fundamentals of management. That created its own dynamic. So the time available for research and developing a dissertation got compressed, so the program was going through some kind of a churn at that time. Externally, the institute also realized around the mid-80s, its founding vision of taking management to undermanaged sectors was not getting much of a traction outside the institute amongst its stakeholders. So the entire vision of the institute was being sort of reoriented. So from 86, the first change that happened to the FPM program, which was in line with what we did with the other programs also, was to open out the program beyond the confines of the sectors and bring in a focus on the business and industry along with the sectoral focus. So the most defining first change in the program was in 1986 when students were admitted to do an FPM in a functional area or in the larger area of business and industry, apart from the sectors. The sectors admission continued, but then we moved into business and industry. The next period I would call between 1986 and 1998. It's a fairly long period. During that time, now that we had sort of broadened our vision to include or put primary focus on business and industry, the program was also getting oriented towards this renewed focus on management in general, focusing on the functional areas. We also wanted to, at that time, there was a lot of requirement for us to streamline the procedures, policies, and the administrative aspects of the program. So a lot of effort was put in during this 12-year period where the program got streamlined considerably. In fact, one of the significant developments that happened during this time was in 1991, a specific FPM office was created. Till then, it was sort of functioning along with the PGP office. Sharad is here, he was the first person to get appointed to that office. So FPM office was created and the program got streamlined quite a bit on the administrative side. So this process continued. Also, let's remember during the period 91 to 98, the institute is also coming to terms with the new realities of the emerging economic environment of liberalization, globalization, etc. So at that time, we were just focusing on getting the program running smoothly. That's what we did. The third phase, when it started in 1998, and I would say it went on till about 2009, that's again an 11-year period. The period with 1998 marked the first significant change in the orientation of the program, in the sense that we started focusing on improving the quality of the program, both on the input side and output side. In fact, Professor Krishna is here. He was heading that committee at that time. One of the important changes they brought about was they said the FPM admission should look beyond CAT, and they made it possible for students who gave other exams like GMAT, GRE, and NARF, all those students also to vie in for admission, so that the pool of students got diversified considerably. And at that time, also the content of our curriculum got streamlined quite a bit. There were a very distinctively identified curriculum for FPM with credit requirements, everything specified, the course content was specified. And a lot of streamlining happened during that period between 98 and 2009. During that 10-year period, as the program was trying to improve its quality, both in terms of the content being delivered, the quality of students you get in, and improving the career prospects for them, the institute was also changing in a different way. In the sense, post-2000, the IIMB got into the limelight at a global level. We were into the rankings. Many of the international agencies were looking at us, ranking us. And as an institution also, we started improving the overall emphasis on the research on the faculty side as well as on the program side. In fact, the early 2000s saw a very significant shift in the key result areas for the faculty. Research started figuring in very prominent, research output started figuring in very prominently in the career progression of faculty, whether it's probation, confirmation, promotion, etc. And the institute very deliberately adopted a position where it has to gain its distinctiveness through the research focus. And we also realized that if the research has to be a flag bearer for the institute's reputation, the FPM program at that time had to play a very significant role. That's how the FPM program also started increasing its rigor and its focus on research output. Then we come to the last phase between 2009 to current, I would say. That's when a very serious attempt was made to elevate the FPM program to the global standards. The 2009 review made a very, very important change to the program, wherein we completely delinked the program from the PGP, and the FPM program was run as a standalone program with its own coursework, its own cohort, and very distinctive curriculum, which was not dependent on the PGP, so that the faculty were encouraged to offer courses exclusively for the FPM. The course content was designed in line with what a top quality research program should be. And the curriculum was also structured in such a way that you had identified core courses, research focused courses, disciplinary courses. We had some 4 buckets of courses which were created during that time, entirely to give focus on FPM as a very distinctive, unique program. So we started that process. And another important thing that happened in 2009 also, the responsibility for the FPM program was decentralized to the areas. Till then, it was administered as a central program, the institute level program, and then areas, depending upon who comes in, used to play a role. Then the whole process was reversed, where the areas had to first plan for the FPM program, decide how many students to take in, depending upon the faculty availability, their current preoccupations, etc. So the entire arithmetic was managed for the admission process, admission priorities, everything was managed by the area. The FPM office became more of a facilitator and also an agency which would ensure there is a certain level of uniformity across the areas. That was a very significant change. So the program was dealing from the PGP, areas started taking responsibility for that, and this trend continued. In 2005, we had another review. There we only rationalized the whole thing. Instead of 4 buckets, we made it 2 buckets. We reduced the total course credit requirements from 72 to 56 or something like that, but also introduced a lot of rigorous requirement on the part of the students to target publishing right from day one. And the research work also, we provided enough scope and avenue for the students to start their research work right from the moment they entered the program, so that by the time they graduate in the 4th or 5th year, they are able to make substantial progress. And the 2009 also reviewed, but did another important thing. The duration of the FPM stipend, I think, was extended to 5 years instead of the original 4 years. That also ensured the students had some kind of a financial security while they were attempting to do some very rigorous work. So I think as a result of all of that, the program in the late 2000s, I could say, late 2010 onwards, has reached a certain level of maturity, which I think all of us can feel reasonably proud of. If you look at it from the output side, what have we managed to produce? We have so many academics from the alumni program, and it's a good thing that the 20 IIMs came up after 2010. If you look at many of the newer IIMs, our FPM alumni form the core of the faculty in many of those institutions. And in 2018, when we started offering PhD programs, now I think the international market is also opening up, because you don't have to go and explain to anybody what this FPM is about. So it's still a PhD program. And there are many of the early the graduates also have significant impact on their careers. Many of them have retired. And they have also done fantastic work. That includes all those original students who were in the first 10 years of the program, who were working only on the sectoral areas. Even they have contributed significantly to the sectors in which they were engaged. So I think the program has evolved considerably. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much. And I think it's sometimes we just forget how change happens, albeit slowly, but it's just taken so much. And this kind of also resonates with what, as a part of the Golden Jubilee, Rishi, one of the things I remember you were talking about, how we've continuously been able to adapt ourselves and be relevant. I think the FPM history is also one such indication of what we've done well as an institution. Thanks, Kumar. From there, KK, obviously it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasanthi. Thank you all for inviting me. Actually, I came here to meet all the old students. That is my primary interest in coming here. Because when I was the coordinator, I felt not only my own students, but other FPM students were also my students, or my friends. And I tried to create a kind of a community, research community. And as a result, I just came here to meet all old students. And I'm very happy. I have already met some, and I'm going to meet some more. And now let me recall. So as Professor Kumar mentioned, some of the transitions that took place in the FPM program were possibly due to a misconception at the very beginning of what the program should be. So the concept we had at the beginning was that we are training teachers for management, and hence those teachers should be as good or better than the PGP students. And hence the CAT was used for admissions, and unfortunately the FPM students admitted did not do as well as the PGP students in the CAT. And that unsettled me. I said, no, that cannot be the way we run a fellowship program. For that reason, I requested the director to appoint an FPM review committee, and then until the program is structured, there should be a holiday for FPM admissions. And fortunately, Professor Ramaswamy agreed to that, and there was an FPM review committee with me and Professor Valecha, who was my predecessor as the program chairman. And then I think the third person is Vinod Vyasulu, but I'm not sure. One more person was in the committee. So as a result, I now apologize. Because of that misconception, we asked 3 people to leave the program. And one of them turned out to be a very good candidate you should have retained. And that person has eventually became my friend and my neighbor and won some awards and so on. So I feel sorry for that. And another thing is, most of the students who went through the program, if you did not like the structure of it, namely that there should be a committee, there should be an external member, and there should be a public defense, there should be periodic seminars, etc., please blame me. Because until I took over, it was simply between the supervisor and the student, and others were not at all involved. Okay. And again, that is because I came with a baggage. I was a member of the postgraduate committee at IIT Kanpur. So I brought in some of the culture of IIT Kanpur. And I was also on a program for the Florida State University in a similar capacity. So I brought some features from there. And luckily enough, as Professor Vyasulu and Ranga here, Ranganathan and others who were present at those days can recall, the faculty was quite supportive to have a well-structured program. And we developed that one. And then another thing I noticed was that not all faculty were participating in the FPM program. I would say that this kind of a function should honor not only the people who participated in the program, but also those who did not participate in the program. Because they were spending their time in doing consultancy work, and they thought that the teaching of a fellowship program is a burden to them. But consultancy has its own dimensions. Without that consultancy experience, you would not have. By the way, I give a lot of credit to Professor Ramaswamy, the first director, for his sectoral orientation. In fact, I don't know how much time you are giving me, but let me take some more. Professor Ramaswamy came to recruit faculty in Boston area, and he stayed with me as my guest because the IIM Calcutta director introduced me to him. And so he looked at my CV and he said, I have too many economists on the faculty, otherwise I would have taken you as a professor yourself. That was before he conducted his interviews. So when he was conducting interviews from my office in a consulting firm in Boston area, he looked at several reports that I had written as a principal investigator. One was on housing, another was on transportation, another was on health, and so on. After he looked at all those reports, he said, no, you are the guy I'm looking for. So that is how he just offered me a job which I could not refuse because he offered that in front of my wife, who always wanted to return to India. So I came here. Luckily, what happened was that I could bring some of that experience into the sectoral management program here. So I felt really thrilled. The opportunity that FPM program and sectoral program gave me to bring some of it into. So for example, I taught a course on health economics, on regional economics, and so on. All this from some of that work. And another thing, most important thing was that culture I was talking about, research culture. I was asking these fellow faculty to start a journal. And I put that proposal in front of the faculty meeting and it was voted down. Nobody wanted to have a journal at that time. Then I felt the fellowship students have nothing to look for, so I encouraged them to start what I called a fellowship forum. So that is a forum where the fellowship students and faculty would meet and discuss various current research issues. And then I suggested to them, why don't you bring out a booklet like a journal? And at that time, it was quite informal. My FPM office was mimeographing the material that was collected by the FPM student. If I remember, somebody can correct, there was one FPM student by name Philip, T. Philip, Thomas Philip, am I right, Vijay Raghavan? Yeah, Thomas Philip, Vijay Raghavan would know, he was one of the old timers. So Thomas Philip is the one who took the lead. And in fact, there was some question about the infrastructure for the FPM program. And Thomas Philip and the CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, they took care of all administrative issues. I never dealt with any administrative issue. And he, as a representative of the fellowship program, he did a lot of work. He needs a lot of credit. And Professor Valecha, my predecessor, has to be really congratulated for a lot of input that he gave me as a member of the FPM review committee, as well as a friend. In fact, he made me write an article on human resource management. I learned from him. I presented a paper in an international conference on systems man and cybernetics conducted by IEEE, where I used a control theoretic model on how to predict and control organizational crisis in an organization. And the input came from Professor Valecha. And I owe to him a lot. And also, we had excellent faculty, particularly in sectoral management, both for FPM as well as for PGP. We had Professor Ashok Sahani in health and rural development, and Professor Anantaramaya, Professor Pidle, and Vijay Raghavan knows Anantaramaya. He worked with him, and several others had a lot of consultancy experience which they brought into the sectoral management program. The program owes a lot to some of those faculty who brought the experience. For the first time in any management institute, we had sectoral management applied management. Thank you. I hope I did.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Over to you, Chiranjib. And thank you very much. I think the 10 minutes idea worked, what you suggested.
So is it 10 minutes then? Okay, good. Because you said 4 minutes, so I was a little confused. Anyway, thanks, Vasanthi. I first want to say it's wonderful to be with old friends and see old colleagues and some old students. I've always cherished my time here in IIM Bangalore. And we are celebrating a wonderful occasion, the 50th anniversary of the Institute. And whatever small role I may have played in the FPM, I'll be happy to talk about it. I think what I want to start by saying two things. First, I want to thank Professor K. Kumar for a wonderful review of what has happened. It saved a lot of us from a lot of going over the same ground. So we can reflect a little bit on the broad story that he has told. And that's what I'm going to do. So what I wanted to say, two things. One is, of course, having taught at IIM and many other places besides, one thing very special about IIM is its constant effort to renew itself, its constant effort to restructure itself. And the goal is to excel. And because of this, those who participated in the restructuring, for them it was painful at the time because many conflicts, many difficulties. But at the end of the day, when you look back, I think that's the reason for IIMB's success. If you look at the FPM, like all other programs, it also has gone through many transformations. They were not normal transformations, but I want to reflect on that. I would basically, whichever way you want to call it, I would say that they were in many ways, you can call it paradigm shift, or you can call it ideological change, whatever you want to say. The fact of the matter is there was substantial reorientation of the Institute as well as the FPM program. And I want to reflect a little bit on that. See, it started at a particular time, and everybody knows that it had a public sector, undermanaged sector, whatever you want to call it, focus. Now, the question is, why was it? And the second question is, why did it not succeed, as we look back on it? I would say that it was an answer for the time. It was the effort to actually improve the management of the government at a sectoral level, because in Indian planning, we realized that the macro planning had reached its whatever it could do, and it wasn't going too well. By the 1970s, it was obvious that the whole planned economy was becoming inefficient, running into difficulty. What to do? And the answer that IIM thought about, and I wasn't there, but I'm interpolating, and I think that it was the recognition from everywhere that, look, forget about the macro management, let's focus on the sectors. Let's focus on transportation, let's focus on health, let's focus on agriculture, etc., and how to improve that functioning. I think it was a noble purpose. I think it was a great purpose, and it certainly fulfilled its role. The goal was okay for the time. Why did it fail? And that, again, we can, in retrospect, we can talk about it, but my reading of the situation is that the system was not able to absorb the inputs that was being given because the public sector, quote unquote, didn't have any mechanism for incorporating this. And the basic story there is, if you were to summarize it, is that our Indian bureaucracy, which was of course the main body into which this would be feeding in, was not like the East Asian or the Singaporean or the Southeast Asian bureaucracies. And they had relatively low capacity for innovation and a tremendous amount of incentive issues and so forth. So because of this lack of match between what we were able to offer in terms of higher knowledge management skills, which would have required quite a bit of restructuring in all these sectors, government simply wasn't ready. The administration wasn't ready. So I won't fault anybody. I won't blame anybody. I know the transition was very, very painful because as the institute went ahead, so many people were hired, so many sectors. We had each of the sectors, we had 6, 7, 8 people in each of the sectors. In agriculture, in urban planning, in transportation, in health. Each of the sectors had 6 or 7, at least, staff. And they suddenly found themselves, with no place to go. And so that was a painful thing. Of course, I entered, and that was phase 1. I entered the picture in phase 2, completely a lateral kind of move, and already the phase 2 had begun. And Professor Murthy was the director at that time, and he had this way of surprising you. Suddenly said, Chiranjib, you're FPM chair. So I said, okay. But what I wanted to say was, by that time, the transitions that were talked about already started. And I can't claim anything particular that I would have done unless, except that I tried to go down the path that was already open. And what was that path? That path, as I saw it, was to continue the academic management and the academic design and the processes in a manner that would sort of look like the American graduate school, PhDs. Basically, the coursework, the comprehensive exams, the core courses, the elective courses, the seminars, the DAC, all of these were copies, I would say, of the American system, and we tried to do it in our own way. Now, and so I found myself doing exactly that. It was not an easy time of transition because, as was pointed out, half the group was sector and half the group was moving into management. Even the faculty, it was a heartbreaking, I would say gut-wrenching, heartbreaking time for many faculty members. Many, many people had left the institute. And when I came, we basically had a whole new batch of faculty members coming in. And the mood was a little odd and strange. Anyway, the main point that I wanted to say was that we went ahead and tried to do this and tried to balance the two demands now, sector plus the management. And we tried to do it the best as we could. I'm overall, when I look back, and I would say that, yes, I think most of the things succeeded. But we had a few constraints, and I'm not sure that those constraints have gone away. One particular constraint was the size of the FPM batch. If you can go ahead and start talking about coursework, but if your total batch is about 15 or 12 and spread over all the areas, there is a relatively limited thing you can do. So there was a basic issue, And I don't think that will go away in our system, because if you try to look like the foreign system, then each department will have about 30 faculty members. And your intake of PhD students, come master students, will be approximately 20, 25 at least, or even 30. So what you can do in that situation, you cannot do in our situation. And we will continue to struggle with this. So that's one issue. The second issue that happened in my time when the situation had already shifted, the momentum had shifted, was the tremendous salary differential that was opening up between the PGP and the FPM people, and what they could hope to look forward to. And of course, India was sort of more or less abandoning completely any idea of ideology or idealism, not idealism. And it became completely money-oriented, let me put it bluntly. And in this context, it was very difficult for the FPM students. And, and they did face a sense of who are we, what is our role, are we really loved in this place, do we bring money into the institute, what do we bring, you're a sink, you're a drain, and all that. And so one of the things that I thought I had to do was to try to strengthen morale. And that was, you can't sort of put it down in formula, but that was my goal, and that's what I always, I put a lot of endeavor trying to give them confidence, trying to give them an identity, trying to give them support, trying to sort of, see that they were, etc. I cannot detail the many steps, but that was a goal. The second thing that I wanted to do, and of course this was, Yaris Murthy also suggested that, is that while we were making an issue comes up, the basic issue is this: you want to make a transition, and you want to give a doctorate in management. But what exactly is it? Even now this question will come up. You want to give a PhD in economics? What is the difference between your PhD and a PhD from Delhi University or some foreign university? What is the specific management component in what you're doing? And are you just another, wannabe department? And this is particularly true for the non-functional areas. And so I basically thought that two things. What is the essence of interdisciplinarity? Management. One is interdisciplinarity. Has to be interdisciplinary, otherwise, and that is the essence of management. You have to put many things together. And secondly, there has to be some linkage with practice. And if you go into a research program, the linkage with practice gets a little bit fuzzy. And so I tried to do whatever I can, etc. And Yaris Murthy supported the idea. It didn't succeed. But the idea of having what was called at that time a visiting management practitioner or some such thing, actually a management person coming and spending some time under the auspices of the FPM, helping design our programs. So you can see that was the goal. And I would say these are the things that I tried to do. There were some challenges I remember. One particular challenge, as Professor Krishna Kumar has also mentioned, is that given the tension in the system and given the sort of the way in which faculty work was getting evaluated, faculty members just were not interested in devoting the time necessary for a good PhD guidance. And there were many reasons. First of all, I think the institute never recognized the hard work that goes into guidance giving. You take a lot of time. I was also trying very hard to create the kinds of programs that are very common in America. Graduate seminar programs with more than one faculty, maybe 2 faculty or 3 faculty members in a small group. Those are the most rich experiences where you learn all the time from peer groups as well as from faculty. But there was no support for that idea. And one of the reasons there was no support is the way we measure the metrics of performance of faculty members is that how many credits was there, how many students were in your class, how many hours of class meetings. All these kinds of measures, metrics, just militated against having seminars and so on and so forth. So that I would consider another failure. I could go on, but let me come to but then why did this phase succeed? That's the second question. I think that this phase succeeded because unlike the first phase, there was a ready market for our PGPs. The world had changed. India was taking off. It was already 8-9 years into the reforms, and the businesses were expanding, and we had something to offer them. So it's a demand-supply thing. what we supplied was very much in demand, and we were able to streamline that demand, and that is why it succeeded. FPM, of course, was a little bit left out in the whole thing. At the time, in my time, it was not easy for the FPMs to get jobs because the academic market hadn't quite opened up, and businesses were not that keen on research inputs. Gradually, it was happening, but not in the speed enough to give them confidence. So, but now I'm very happy to see that we're in a different world altogether, where the academic demand market has very much expanded and opens a totally different scenario. So that, I would say, is a reason for success and for this particular period. And and FPM also sort of began to catch on. Gradually, even in my time, some companies were taking research-oriented hiring people. So this is the past. This happened when I saw it. I didn't call it phase 4, I would say phase 3. And so phase 3 is, in my opinion, going on right now. And the basic point I want to make on phase 3 is the following. I would like to say that each phase has an ideology. Each phase has a particular paradigm. And each phase has a bunch of stakeholders to whom it is beholden. In the first phase, it was clearly government. In the second phase, it was clearly industry, private business. But now we have moved into a completely different world. And I would say, and people may disagree with me, that after 2009, we're in a totally different scenario. We are not yet fully understood where we are. But it is not the world of the pure LPG, globalization, liberalization. It's changed. And what I wanted to say is that in this new scenario, what would be the kinds of orientation that the institute should have? My own feeling, and of course I'm not here, is that we don't have one. Because it's confusing. Government is not that interested in supporting us. They use our name and then they do what they want. The private sector has other things to do. They will, of course, still be there, but we cannot anymore have the same kind of wide-eyed appreciation for what they've been doing, and so we must reorient. So what should we do? I don't have time to expand this idea, but basically what I wanted to say is that we need a different ideology, and we need a different bunch of stakeholders. And if you ask me what it is, in a nutshell, I will say it's business, government, and society. Why do I say this? Because I think that we should understand that the world is in crisis. Capitalism is in crisis. And we can't go on just doing detailed work in the areas and doing PhD research, which is only kind of trying to get some publications out in playing the rating game, and lose sight of the big issues. And as long as we have the liberty and as long as we have the luxury, we should not give up. The fundamental role of higher education is to set a moral standard, to set directions and exercise some leadership. And in this case, what's going on is, since we don't have any natural sponsors, but we are sufficiently independent, I think the institute can chart its own course, basically. Why? And I won't say too much more, except just to say that, look, what do I mean by crisis? You look around everywhere. Wouldn't you say that the trust in capitalism has declined? Wouldn't you say that trust in government has declined? Wouldn't you say that the world is riven with corruption? Wouldn't you say that people have lost faith? Whatever else you had hope in, it is defeated. You said, oh, email has come, IT will save us. Now see what's the story. Any kind of claim that AI is rescuing us is immediately countered by just yesterday Zuckerberg had to apologize for the harm that is being done. So in other words, that world has changed. And of course, government, let's not talk too much about it. But the point is that people don't have faith in government either. Yeah, I'm finishing. Not even less than that. Less than that. Just simply to say that, and civil society is more or less out of our ken. We have to bring them in. And we must also, and so therefore I would simply say that we must look at all our programs, including the PhD, in a manner that fulfills the current situation. Now, if I were to put it bluntly, I would say two things in the FPM. One is And I saw that there is absolutely zero core programs. There is no commonality anymore. You can just come and be part of your area. So that means that the FPM office is nothing but a post office. But that's not the main point. The main point here is that you don't have any built-in interdisciplinarity. It has to be there, first of all. Otherwise, management, you will not fulfill your management function. You will be a sectoral specialist, an intellect worker, not an intellectual. So that's the first point. Bring in interdisciplinarity and bring in perspective. And I know that many of the FPMs, many of them are teachers, and in any case, we are producing large numbers of teachers. And what kind of teachers do you want to produce? And there I want to say, it may be not possible for you to do everything that you start believing in. As someone said, I read it yesterday, I thought it was very interesting. It's very difficult to make a person understand something when his salary depends on not understanding it. So that challenge you do have. But if you're going to train teachers that go into the world, they have to project a moral element. They have to work towards creating trust. I don't believe that the capitalists can't change, and I don't believe also that the government can't change. But they have no mechanism of doing it. And if higher education institutions cannot do it, I don't know who can. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to kind of stop here to just reflect, taking both their perspectives. I think there are some things have changed, but some things still haven't changed. And one similarity was, what's the role of us as teachers? What's the relevance of the kind of research that we do? Were we more relevant when we were sectoral because we had depth to offer them? And in the process of this journey, what more can we bring to the table? I think some of the purpose that you said when we started out seems to be relevant even today, particularly with Chiranjib's closing remarks on who are the teachers who are going to actually be teaching in this context of crisis. What's the nature of research that we do, which will actually shape in a reality that is seemingly more difficult to shape? Yeah? I think those questions are as relevant today as they were 46 years ago. And that, I think, is quite heartening in one way, but also kind of motivates us to go forward. The second reflection that I had, and I just take a couple of minutes as a student, panelist, and a moderator on this, is that I think, Chiranjib, when you were articulating the tensions that the faculty went through, and Professor Ranganathan, you were there when I was the fellow student in this program, and two things just struck me, that I don't think as a student we are just so preoccupied with what are our problems and our pressures. And I do remember barging into your office multiple times till we ended up with that 1991 review process. And the key things we were fighting for, today if I were to talk about it, it sounds so foolish and stupid. And that, I think, tells us much about the evolution. We were fighting for the fact that we should not have to walk up to our advisor's room every month for a signature that we were present for 30 days. It was the most humiliating experience standing in front of Anandram's office. And Anandram, of course, came from another system. So he turned around and said, Vasanthi, why do I have to sign this every month? No, because the fellowship office needs this as a document. And quite honestly, he said, I don't know whether you're there or not. So you see that? I mean, it was as simple as that. Fighting for being able to get interlibrary loan book in 3 weeks' time. And Professor Ranganathan and I had this wonderful conversation, maternity leave. I went on maternity leave during my program, and we didn't have a policy document that permitted maternity leave because there were no women 4 years before me, and I think maybe 3 years at least after me. So it's kind of heartening to see the number of women we have on the program and the kind of breaks that several of them have taken effortlessly, come back, faculty. But I think faculty support is one thing I think we've had right through this. Yeah, I think faculty in their personal capacity have actually gone way beyond the call of duty. And I think that has been an enduring part of our culture of the FPM and doctoral. So when you said, are they my students or there are other students, but they are our students, I think that spirit has, I think, significantly stayed even today. Over to you, Gopal.
Thank you. I think thanks, Anand, for getting me in. Just for recollection, mine is the first batch in transition from old Double Road to IIMB campus. So you can understand from an local area with agriculture background to becoming a global professional, I think this institute has done. So I owe a lot to the institute. Of course, Professor Krishnan who took me. I think there's a role called Professor of Practice, which is very unknown in India. I think Professor Rishi introduced in IIM Indore, I got taken in my second avatar. But I'll tell you, when we shifted to the new campus, forget identity has been talked enough. We didn't have an identity, but we became part of the institute. So Viji, me, Suma, Uday, ours was the first batch which had a 10 number after the break of review. We had no library, no infrastructure, double road here, microfiche, no desktop, nothing. Meaning, no mess also. So we we really grew up as toddlers in the campus, fought for ourselves. But luckily, as Vasanthi said, professors were there. I think my guide, Professor Valecha's name is there. I think many of my teachers are there. I owe a lot of respect to them. So we were really helped in transformation through sectoral route. I think Vasanthi, Kumar, Sriram came later on, but we are in between groups. Viji, me, Uday, Suma, we took the sectoral route, but we leveraged our past. Viji starts from ISI, he leveraged it in transport. I am PMIR, I did it in air transportation. And we had mix of, Valecha as my guide, we had two professors, Professor Lele from practice, Professor Subramanian from economics, and I had Air India Director HR, who is a TIS person as an external member. Very rare privilege, excellent team. My work was very relevant on craft unionism in 1980s. Still relevant today, but that is the contribution to the sector. Did they take it? No, they were not ready. I went back to Air India, they were not ready. I went to public sector, they were not ready. But the work stayed, yes. I think Father D'Souza was a visionary who was accelerated director. He recruited me and did the mistake of recruiting me, then Vijay, Uday, Suma. I think my batch was the first batch. In a large number, we got into academics. About 6, 7 of us bunch, we got into exam. So we were prepared, though in sector, but we contributed to management. We went back as management teachers. Infrastructure was a major constraint, but I think I must tell Subhadra, Anuradha, Chikmalaya, Teresa, I can't forget Niranjan. They'll write to foreign universities getting dissertation abstracts, international microfiche. Those are the days we struggled really. We went to IISc for interlibrary loan. So I think constraints were there, but I'll tell you, I met with an accident. I was in coma, I fought back, my thesis got delayed. I got a lot of messages, consolations from institute. Every time I'll come, they'll first ask, how is your health? People. So I'm saying this was IIM in 80s, very compassionate, very empathetic, and no dilution in standard. We had constraints, but I don't think, meaning some of us cleared in company first attempt, some of us asked 2-3 times also. Twice we went through tough time. So that is there. The identity shift happened not because of anything else, our work. Like Vijay, me, Uday, Suma, my batch onwards, we started getting acceptance even in our PGP batchmates like Das, Nayandas, other many academicians as peers having done fellowship from here. So you can understand how tough it has been for IIMB PhD students to do that. So that is one shift I remember. The other thing I remember is from being part of the crowd, slowly our research identity. Vijay was known as a cartoonist, Uday, Suma as friends. But I think there slowly the academic excellence gradually got accepted among the peer group in the profession. But research was not necessarily our forte those days. I will not blame research guides, though my guide was a great researcher, but I think we are not there. I think held in love, evolved in the process with the contribution of the teachers. Staff played a phenomenal role. Please pardon me, all our teachers were so busy, they didn't have time for us. I used to go with my guide from here to airport in his car. That's the only time he had. Professor Valecha was in consulting, so that is he had. But I'll tell you, as I kept coming, institute always had door open for me. L.S. Murthy, Jannat. So I kept interacting, interfacing with the institute from BPL, from Indal, from Gujarat Gas. So institute always informally had a door open to the alumnus when we passed. In fact, Professor Thiru and Professor J. Ramchandran, when I was in industry, they said, why don't you come? I came with my salary slip. I said, sir, I can come. Can you give me assurance? First 1 or 2 years, you manage with low salary. Later on, you can pay your EMIs. I think Professor Chiranjib or Krishna Kumar, they told about money. We were not paid adequately those days. So that was one reason why many of us could not continue. So I continued in industry. I think one shift happened after industry experience. Professor Rishi tried professor of practice. Then that brought me back to academics. That has been a phenomenal move. The other shift I have seen IIM over last 42 years, both as an insider, outsider, is the evolving commitment to research and globalization of the academics. You know, you meet, when I used to go those days and when I go to conferences now, IIMB's identity is no more as also there. So that's the identity that is happening. I can go on, but I think I'll stop in the interest of time.
I'm going to ask Kumar to briefly kind of share anything as your experience as you went through this program as a student and then here. And after that, I'm really sorry, the audience, you please meet each one of them individually and have a conversation. I'm seeing daggers from those anchors there, and I promise 12:30 closure, okay? So I'm not going to take questions. I'm sorry about it, but we will just listen to Kumar, and I'll ask Professor Krishna Kumar for last closing comments, okay?
Yeah, experience as a student, a lot of interesting. I'll share a very, very light, humorous incident that happened during our FPM program that was very important for our existence at that time. We used to get a princely sum of 1,200 rupees per month as a fellowship student, as a stipend. We suddenly found out that the IISc students were getting 2,500 rupees per month and we were getting 1,200 rupees, right? As he said, there was no policy for maternity, there was no policy about how to hike up the stipend for fellowship students. So Professor K.B. Nair, I think, was the dean at that time. We went and told him, Sriram was there. Sriram and I went and told him this is what is happening in the IISc, why are you not paying us more? So Professor Nair took a week and then came back and told us, Kumar, can you somehow get that order from IISc which hiked the stipend from this amount to that amount? Then I will see what I can do. Perfect jugaad. Sriram and I hopped onto Sriram's scooter. We went to IISc. We didn't know anybody there. We stopped somebody on the way. Can you show me a PhD student here? Then we found a PhD student. Said, can you please give me the copy of that order? He didn't have it. He took us to the IISc office and then took the order from the file. And there was no facility on that day to photocopy that. He said, you take a photocopy and give me the original. And I'm going to the lab. I'm not going to be free. Then we said, how do you read it? No, this is my lab. You just take the photocopy and slip the original under the door and go back. So we took the photocopy, slipped the original under his door, came back and gave it to K.B. Nair. Professor K.B. Nair managed to tell the MHRD fellows, this is what has happened in IISc. Next 2 months, we got the increase. Not only we got the increase, we got 1.5 years of arrears. And was very polite students. We hosted a party for all our faculty in Hotel Harsha. We had a wonderful evening, right? And after that, okay, progressive. This is one of those. I mean, I go back to what you said about faculty support. Professor Kepita didn't balk at it at all. I said, okay, if it has to be done, okay, help me to help you, right? That was the aptitude. Then we managed to get that done. The other reflection I have is that, as you could see, I graduated in 91. When I graduated, Professor Ranga was the chairperson, FPM chairperson after. So I came back and said, my thesis got a lot of industry data. Can I publish it as a book? Professor Ranganathan, obviously you had your constraint. He said, why are you asking me? Go and ask your employer. I was working for TCS at that time. Ask them to fund you to bring out the book. And that's the last I thought about that book. That is gone, right? But when I came back after about 10 years, back into academia in 2001, almost full 10 years after I graduated, catching up with research was really a problem, And that's where I owe it to all my colleague faculty, both faculty who were senior to me, faculty who were younger to me. And I would even particularly say the younger faculty were a lot more generous to sort of accept me and then help me with all the struggles I had in sort of bringing my research capability or research interest up to a certain acceptable level, a lot of them collaborated with me, I could sort of, get into the system gradually. It was a struggle, but then I got a lot of support from my peers. And that is the change which Chiranjib was also talking about. By then, the whole atmosphere in the institute has changed, and everybody knew that this is our calling. And there was no discrepancy in terms of who's good at that, who's not at that, but collectively we have to do that. And the kind of peer support we got after we came back, we were respected for what we brought in. At the same time, we were also told you have to measure up on issues where you haven't brought enough strengths, and they helped us a lot. I think that I give it to IIMB is a great place for you to catch up. Okay.
Just want to reflect on two of the comments that Professor Kumar and Chiranjib Sen made. One is Kumar's comment that FPM was centralized and sectors may not have been consulted. I would like to correct that perception. That was not the case. We did consult all the sectors and areas for the support that they can give for the FPM program. That's one. And secondly, the point that Chiranjib raised is the first few batches had this problem of trying to supply without there being a demand. Okay, so I discussed that at length with Professor Ramaswamy, and he made a very sincere effort. If you, some of you may recall that we used to have many what are called organization-based programs in the beginning, where public sector organizations were asked to conduct management training programs here on campus. So we faculty used to participate in that. We used to get the problems from them, and we used to apply management techniques to those problems, and they were coming to our classroom, and then it was expected that those programs would generate the demand. And when that did not work out, Professor Ramaswamy said, maybe I'm pitching at a lower level, I should go to the top level. So he organized the first senior IAS officers training program for 1 month at IIM Bangalore. And that included all senior secretaries level in all the major departments. And Professor S. Subramaniam and I conducted that program. And the idea there being to sensitize, to tell them that you have to create a cadre for public sector management. That was the idea. It did not possibly work, but we made an effort.
Thank you so much. I mean, the session title was Flashback. Yeah? And the flashback was so important as we kind of look at ourselves in terms of feed forward. And I hope that the panel has been able to kind of provoke some thinking, some insights. And particularly, I think what I take away at the end of this panel discussion, thanks to each one of you, is that the journey has been long. But as we sit here today with all of you here, I think there is that commitment that given the kind of future that Chiranjib spoke about, I think we do have the capability here to be able to kind of look at it and shape it.